In Venezuela, the Minister of Petroleum, Pedro Rafael Telechea, highlighted the progress in the country's Orinoco oil belt. In Colombia, the National Liberation Army announced the end of the armed strike in the department of Choco in the northwest of the nation. And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated negotiations between Hamas and Israel are heading to failure. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Minister of People's Power of Petroleum of Venezuela, Pedro Rafael Telechea, highlighted the progress in the country's Orinoco oil belt. In this regard, Telechea reported that the Hugo Chavez oil belt, 6 cliffs and 400 productive wells were rehabilitated, which are now in full operation. The minister also congratulated the teamwork of the Petroleum of Venezuela, PDVSA, and assured that the renaissance of the Venezuelan oil industry is showcased in the production capacity with the recovery of its infrastructure and fundamental facilities despite the unilateral coercive measures and attacks on the peace and stability of the country. And more on Venezuela, the justices of the Electoral Chamber of the Supreme Court, together with a group of international observers, visited the headquarters of the National Electoral Council to begin the validation of the sample of physical transcribed minutes for the progress of the investigation of the contentious electoral appeal. Let's see.
This is of the Electoral Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice, headed by the President of the Judiciary, Carislia Rodriguez, and the Justice Fanny Marquez and Inocencio Figueroa, accompanied by the experts and international observers who are witnesses in the investigation process of the contentious appeal filed by President Nicolás Maduro, arrived at the main headquarters of the electoral power in Caracas, Venezuela. This after the Supreme Court of Justice informed that once the process of transcription of the representative samples of the tally sheets submitted by the National Electoral Council is finished, they will proceed to the validation of the tally sheets. The justices were guided to the data center where the entire technological infrastructure of the National Totalization Center number 1 of the National Electoral Council is located. In this space, the servers of the National Electoral Council operates. This is what is called by the Electoral National Council authorities as the electoral bubble, a restricted security area that protects all the technological infrastructure of National Totalization Center number 1 of the National Electoral Council. The authorities also toured the management area of Totalization Center where the justices, experts, and international observers will validate the physical tally sheets coincide with the digital ones and will verify that the results are correct. The technical specialists of the National Electoral Council manage the platform to support the verification process of the experts of the Supreme Court of Justice. This is where all the tally sheets transmitted by the voting machines are received and where the process of reception of the same is done. Once they pass all the security protocols and are proceeded and totalized, this procedure is carried out in this room in the management area of the Totalization Center number 1 of the National Electoral Council. The act was observed in real time by the witnesses of the different political organizations that participate in the electoral event of the last July 28. With today's verification, the Electoral Chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice closes the cycle to verify that the tally sheets that were transcribed in phase 1 of the technical expertise and that coincide with the tally sheets received in the database of the National Electoral Council National Totalization Centers. This will guarantee that the integrity of the data has been maintained at all times by demonstrating 100% consistency of the same.
And we stay on topic. On Sunday, the president of Pakistan, Asif Ali Zardari, addressed a letter to his counterpart of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, in which he recognized him as the winner of the July 28th presidential elections. The Pakistani head of state highlighted that the third consecutive victory of the Venezuelan president reflects the respect and confidence of the people in his leadership. Furthermore, Ali Zardari assured that both nations will continue on the path of cooperation and strategic alliance for the advancement and development of the bilateral relations between the countries. And in other news, in Colombia, the National Liberation Army, the ELN, announced on Sunday the end of the armed strike in the department of Choco in the northwest of the nation. The decision was communicated by the Omar Gonzalez Western War Front of the National Liberation Army and made effective since 6 a.m. local time on Monday. The strike was decreed last August 11th due to an offensive against the Clan del Golfo and has affected several municipalities in the region, where, according to local authorities, 45 to 50,000 people have been left confined and 3 people have died. In its communication, the ELN thanked the population for having complied with the order and invited them to continue organizing and fighting for dignity and the defense of the territory and life. In Manabí, western Ecuador, a couple was murdered on Sunday in broad daylight aboard public transportation as the country experiences a surge in violence in the last 72 hours. The crime was registered in the touristic city of San Vicente, located north of Manabí, and its perpetrators have yet to be apprehended. In the context of the current escalation of violence, another murder was also committed in the central province of Los Rios, where the victim was shot 6 times by a cold shooter. Precisely, Los Rios has reportedly registered 160 homicides so far this year, which represents at least 2 murders a day. The violence has also affected the regions of Quito, Machala, Puerto Viejo, and Guayaquil, where murders, kidnappings, and tortures have been recorded. And the government of Mexico, headed by Andrés Manuel López Obrador, lifted 100,000 citizens out of poverty every month. This was said by the head of state at the end of his transition tour. On Sunday, in the company of President-elect Claudia Sheinbaum, the president closed a tour of 32 entities that he described as unprecedented in Monterrey, in the northeast of the nation. There, in addition to supervising the Young People Building the Future program and thanking the state for the signs of trust and affection, he gave an account of the scope of the fight against poverty after 40 years of what he described as neoliberalism.
Sacamos de la pobreza a más de 5 millones.
We lifted more than 5 million Mexicans out of poverty. I will explain it to you. Although conservatives do not like to hear it, in 2 6-year terms, with Calderon and with Peña, every month 100,000 people entered poverty. Every month 100,000 people. Every month the number of poor people grew by 100,000 people. With us, every month 100,000 people get out of poverty. That is the difference.
Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Monday, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken stated that negotiations between Hamas and Israel are heading to failure. The U.S. Secretary of State Blinken said so to the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, as they met on Monday before the encounter of Blinken with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Washington used to be confident about reaching a solution earlier, but this has been frustrated as Israel has laid constant sieges to the original proposal of Qatar, Egypt, and the United States. Blinken warned the Israeli president that perhaps they are facing the last chance to save the hostages. And regarding the Palestinian resistance movement Hamas' rejection to the new proposal, in a statement, Hamas called on the mediators to offer a concrete plan to implement the proposals already agreed upon on July the 2nd, emphasizing the need to avoid a continuous cycle of stalled negotiations due to Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's delaying tactics and his arbitrary new conditions. In this regard, Hamas stressed that the Western proposal reflects Netanyahu's insistence on maintaining control over strategic areas of Gaza, including the Netzarim crossing, the Rafah crossing, and the Philadelphia corridor. Meanwhile, in Palestine, medical authorities in the Gaza Strip reported that Israeli attacks on the enclave have killed over 40,000 people since the beginning of the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people. The enclave's Ministry of Health also reported that since the beginning of the Israeli offensive, more than 92,000 people have been injured, while another 10,000 are missing. It is important to point out that the civil defense teams and ambulances have difficulties to enter the areas affected by the clashes due to prohibitions of the Israeli occupation forces, causing many victims to die due to the lack of medical assistance. And the Hamas-Palestinian resistance movement welcomed the decision of the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, to prohibit the export of coal to the Israeli occupier. Hamas congratulated the president for his courageous stance in breaking off ties with the Zionist occupation to press Tel Aviv into stopping the genocide in Gaza. Colombia used to be the largest supplier of fossil fuels to Israel, but in recent months, President Petro has harshly criticized the massacre carried out by the state in the Gaza Strip. In addition, the Colombian leader asked the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant against the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And in other news, the Syrian Foreign Ministry on a Monday rejected the unilateral coercive measures imposed by the United States and the Western powers and described them as economic terrorism. In this sense, the Syrian Foreign Ministry pointed out that these measures hinder the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals and have come to constitute economic terrorism and a weapon directed against the peoples. It further explained that the effects of the punitive measures are multiplied in the case of Syria due to the hostile measures of the United States and its allies and the plundering of the country's natural wealth. And in Kuwait, disruptions in fuel supply at power stations led to outages in the country's capital. The failure caused the shutdown of several generating units at the power stations in Subiya and West Doha, as well as at desalination plants. In this regard, the authorities reported that the service restriction is necessary for the stability of the domestic electric system. Therefore, they urged the population of Kuwait for keeping up saving electricity in the next few hours. And in other news, in the United States, hundreds rallied in Chicago on Sunday ahead of the Democratic National Convention, which begins on Monday. Despite the growing popularity of U.S. Vice President and presidential candidate Kamala Harris, the shadow of protests over the Biden-Harris administration's support for Israel's war against Gaza hangs over the convention. Security has been stepped up for the four-day gathering, with tens of thousands of people expected to descend to the city for daily protests, the largest of which are scheduled for Monday and Wednesday. On Sunday, several hundred demonstrators gathered in downtown Chicago, carrying a banner that read "Feminist and LGBTQ plus people for a free Palestine."
We want to let the Democrats know that their vote is not something that is a given from the people, it's something that is earned. They have to show us that they're here to support our interests and not that of their corporate donors.
top of that, any rights activist, I don't care what field you are in, if you're not in solidarity with people of Gaza and Palestine right now while a genocide is going on, then you are totally bankrupt as a rights activist. You cannot be in favor of your own liberation if you're not in favor of other people's liberation.
Hurricane Ernesto approaches the U.S. and Canada as Category 1 storm. The U.S. National Hurricane Center showed that on its way to Bermuda, the cyclone reached Category 2, then downgraded to a tropical storm as it hit the island and Puerto Rico. In both territories, the climate event left serious flooding and strong power outages. As Ernesto continues its path towards North America, experts predict dangerous waves and rip currents on the coast of the United States and Canada. As a result, some U.S. states have raised their alert levels, namely Florida and North Carolina, as well as the Canadian regions of Halifax and Nova Scotia. And in Chad, local authorities reported that more than 60 people died as a result of floods caused by torrential rains in the country. The rains in the northwest of the country caused floods in the mountainous areas where several rivers flow before evaporating in the Sahara. The authorities urged to prepare a program of assistance to the inhabitants of the affected areas, including those difficult to access as a result of the floods. Experts warn that due to the effects of the climatic phenomenon El Niño, several areas in West, East, and Southern Africa are suffering from heavy rains or severe droughts. And we go now to Venezuela as the leaders gathered with PSUV leaders in Caracas. Let's listen to the president of Venezuela.
Including our prophets, Liberator Bolivar Sucre, Urdaneta, Francisco de Miranda, Sanchez, in their ways they were prophets because they forecasted the future of freedom, of honor. Somehow they just paved the way for us. The Hamas did. There's no difference in their efforts, in the efforts of prophets of Bolivar, of Mahoma, Chavez, Zamora. It's the same track. From the point of view of spiritual and human, it is a sacred, a holy path. For us, policy have to be written with a capital P. When we speak about homeland, we speak about democracy, coexistence, understanding, and that's the only way to build that is from love. People who build from love build from the Jesus Christ, from Christ, and from the wealth, from the good, and we will make advance a nation. And so it is impossible from hatred, from ego, and they try to pretend to intend to impose the country. They are elite projects. That's why fascism has failed in the Bolivarian homeland, in the Bolivar's homeland. That's why fascism cannot enter in the Bolivar's homeland. So fascists won't arrive, won't take office, won't assault the power in Venezuela. We won't allow it, ever. So those who are burned and those who will be burned, no, we are born to defeat fascism and see the homeland grow. So the politics with capitalizing P. We have gone through a beautiful history. I especially greet to the sound technicians. Well, the important thing is that you hear me. I want to greet and direct especially to the national direction of the socialist youth, to all its staff. There are 31 youngsters here from beautiful youth, wonderful treasure. You are from the sovereign free homeland. Don't get robbed your homeland for anyone. So I greet the youth and thank you. The politics with capitalizing P, we are defeating a coup d'etat in Venezuela. So those who want to open their eyes and see it, you are free to do it. And those who want to get manipulated by the narrative of imperialism through social media, or poor him or poor her, call it whatever it calls. So those who are manipulated by that narrative that are trying to justify a coup d'etat and the installation of a violent regime full of hate and fascism in Venezuela. So here we youth, we all, well, a coup d'etat that I have labeled as a cyber attack, a cyber coup d'etat. You that are good thinkers, you partners, could comprise, could review the concept that we want to refer. It is a cyber coup d'etat. In 2002, it was clear for the world that it was a media coup d'etat. And from there, it emerged the movie that the revolution won't be transmitted or televised because the global television and the communicational hegemony of prevailing classes were fundamentally from those TV chains. The biggest TV chains, beginning with the CNN, were televised media. So it was a coup d'etat. Fundamentally, it was a media coup d'etat. It was led by a Venezuelan TV channel, and we haven't forgotten about that. One thing is that we are tolerant Democrats, and another one is that we forget about from where it emerged, that coup d'etat. From a hill it was directed. The headquarters of that coup d'etat was from the hill, and so they ordered to persecute and kill Bernal. Blessed Bernal, Freddy Bernal, blessed Bernal, the Christ is with you, with me, and with you all. From there, they ordered to search for Diosdado all across the country. And so they gave the order of taking Chavez away to a darkened site to kill him, to assassinate him. It was a media coup d'etat of oligarchies led by the imperialism and the far right of the world. For the far right, that was led by a horrendous character, Jose Maria Aznar, the then president of Spain. He just entered Spain into the Iraq's war, and then he first he guaranteed the coup d'etat in Venezuela. And the government of Spain was the first government to recognize the dictatorship of Pedro Carmona Standard, that lasted 47 hours. That coup d'etat had its characteristics, its script. We couldn't break the script, and the coup d'etat won. We denounced it. Pedro Carreño, Iris Varela, Celia Flores, and the youngster legislator Nicolás Maduro. We were a group of youngsters, and in the days of January, on January 22, 2002, a day before the great march that was almost to the Miraflores doors, a march that led the today deceased Enrique Mendoza, who were mobilized almost thousands of people. A day earlier, they showed the videos, because we have the evidence, but there were blinded people who were manipulated and full of hate. That great march arrived to got to the Square Oliari, and they were preparing what was on April 11, and they were planning for the route on April 11. We just managed to have the tape recorders of all that. The humiliated and full of hate, like a zombie, Carlos Ortega, it was a criminal, and Carlos Andrés Pérez, who is deceased, and how they were telling their plans, and it seems that he opened his program next week. Jorge del Divan, he informed me, President, I have ready to the next program, From the Streets to Networks. he was thinking about it, but it is already a fact. It is a new program of TikToker Jorge Rodriguez, and I think that Delcy is thinking about in something similar, and it is going to be called with the hand in. But they followed their script, and we couldn't detain it because of our innocence, our lack of experience, and for trusting that only with the word and the claims we were able to detain to stop fascism. 22 years later, there are a lot of lessons that we have learned, and in that opportunity we have a defensive tactic. Today our tactic is in a popular civic and police offensive, and we have the permanent initiative. Before the slogan was that in each 11 there is a 13, but today the slogan is no, we won't have ever again a coup d'etat or April 11. They have substituted policy parties, they have substituted leadership and doctrines and ideas by for the influencers. It is crystal clear who and where have come the poisoning attack of hate to on Venezuelan society. So in the latest days it has been very good what's happening, because we achieved, they throw out what they have at the level of hate and rebelliousness. I think it is a great lesson for the whole society. They have substituted, they have ousted all political parties. There are no political leaders. There is no Juan Stalin González, Capriles, Luis Moreno. There is no any of them. There is now the hegemony of an only voice that it imposes from their hate and from their influencers. So the performance on Saturday, on last Saturday, revealed the hate, and that poisoning, that poisoning of hate is not against the Chavista people. I questioned on Saturday to the people, compatriots, you know what is fascism like? And they all replied with the conviction and security and certainty, we know what fascism is. And I questioned Jorge and the new program, do we know what is fascism? It is not about reading a book about the phenomenon of fascism, which is always good, or watching movies about fascism, about Hitler, Mussolini, Franco, about Pinochet, Benidela, Castillo de Arma. It is not about seeing the experiences that we have known from history. We are ready to say what is fascism like. We know how they hate, we know their violence, their intolerance, their ego, their contempt. We know because we live through it. We have experienced. Celia, we have been seeing this yes, and it is not against the Chavista people. It is very painful the way they killed our partner, women. You haven't denounced it with enough. It is a hate crime against a popular leader who was stabbed and beaten to death. Crime of fascism, of the fascism of Edmundo González Urrutia and the fascist and violent Maria Corina Machado. We know the crime committed in Turmero, our dear Governor Karina. We have already captured the intellectual and material authors. Please give the names of the two compatriots. In Turmero, 5 shops she received from those fascists, from those criminals, and all are captured, all are arrested. The intellectual and material authors are arrested, who are from the comanditos, even though outlets are silent about it. They saturated of hate, and they get benefit of the electoral campaign for assaulting the power of Venezuela. The two police officers who were assassinated, and they didn't assassinate more because the Bolivarian police and the popular power safeguarded from the fascist powers dozens of citizens, dozens of officials, authorities of security. I want to pay from the bottom of my heart an homage and declare these 2 women martyrs of the Bolivarian revolution of the 21st century. Moroto Silva, honor and glory. Assassinated by the comanditos led by fascist Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo González Urrutia. Honor and glory, Maria Coromoto. And this woman, age 72 years old, head of the PSUV, honor and glory. And God bless you. Martyrs of the Bolivarian Revolution. I ask for the greatest homages for them as martyrs of this revolution against fascism. Because, as we said, the Bolivarian Revolution, a humanist revolution, a Christian revolution, democratic and constitutional popular revolution, socialist revolution, we have to say that it is anti-imperialist and that this revolution has an anti-fascist character. And I vindicate the anti-fascist character of the Bolivarian revolution at a time when fascism advances in Europe, in the United States, at a time in which the power of billionaires of the cyber empire are intending to assault the political power across the planet. And the jewel of the crown is Venezuela. That's the real axis of the battle that we are waging today. Love versus hate, violence versus peace, tolerance and harmony, or intolerance and persecution, truthful democracy and straightforward democracy, or criminal and fascist regime. Imagine yourself, you compatriots, that we were talking yesterday. The hate wasn't against the Chavista people. They threatened thousands of youngsters, of leaders, of communities. They threatened thousands of spokespersons of the communes, of leaders of clubs. They intended with those threats, with those live threats, that terror be to impose terror, and they achieved that in some places. They achieved to demobilize popular forces temporarily, but the main forces of the people went to the streets, took to the streets very quickly, because on July 30, on Tuesday, July 30, our people were at the streets, mobilized at the streets. On Tuesday, July 30, they intended a violent assault in Miraflores, and over 20,000 compatriots arrived in marches at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, July 30. We were saved by from a powerful storm, a powerful assault. No one expected that 20,000 arrived to support us. And the people on the streets on July 30, they defended us, and they prevented the assault on Miraflores, and all criminals are arrested and confessed. They received orders from fascist Maria Corina Machado and the fugitive Edmundo González Urrutia, the criminal and coward and fugitive from justice Edmundo González Urrutia. On July 30 and on July 31, and the people were on the streets had been on the streets for 15 days. The youth, the communes, the grandparents, women, all commune councils, I received them, and then there we were under the rain, on the great marches. So there was they make us invisible, they make us silent. When the Venezuelan people have been marching for 15 days, we have been silenced. We received youngsters amid rainfalls, and it was one of the most beautiful encounters in Miraflores Palace. And it is like that. They make us invisible. CNN, which is a coward, they don't broadcast anything. AP, AFP, not to mention the far right websites, and there was the first measurement of forces. It was on a Saturday from that week. On August 3rd, day of the flag, the day of the national flag, it is a Bolivarian, Mirindi, Chavista flag. Those who raise the Venezuelan flag, it is a Chavista, Bolivarian, and Miranda's followers. And so gauging that force was spectacular. Over at least 350,000 people took to the streets to support us, and so there was a double failure. A double failure by fascist Maria Corina Machado, who summoned the people and who haven't been able to mobilize the people, because the people doesn't want violence, fascism, or hate. Her own voters let her alone, and the failure of criminal Edmundo González Urrutia, who's hidden since then. He's hidden and fugitive from justice. But they silenced, they deceived themselves, and then they took the modality of influencers. They said, we hid the political leaders. They are humiliated. I don't know how to call the phenomenon in which people enjoy being humiliated. That's masochism. So the masochist politicians like Abeledo, Ramón, José Medina, Omar Barbosa, and those who call the humiliated politicians, how did you call them? How do you call them, Diosdado? Which is a unitary platform for unity. The humiliated, defeated people, Manuel Rosales. It is very sad how they ended their political career. Humiliated by fascism, defeated by the imperialists. Those who made the hate campaign, they are the influencers, and so they entered into the game, those influencers, and so they are depressed. Before we have a WhatsApp group, but I deleted WhatsApp from my life, so I use Telegram now. Harris, who was dedicated to make laugh people, but now he's dedicated to hate and to take an offenses on Venezuela. So that now the influencers enter into the game. They made 30 TikTok live, and influencers have about 1 million followers. Someone bothered to count up the number of likes that they gave to the TikTok likes and the Instagram likes, and they reached 1.2 billion likes. But there is a tiny detail. Those people could have many followers, many bots, many likes, but bots don't march, don't vote. Those who march are the sovereign people. Those who vote is the sovereign people. And so on Saturday there was another, they gauge force again among influencers, bots, fascist, violent Maria Corina Machado, and the coward fugitive Edmundo Gonzalez, and the Venezuelan people. And it is evident the images speak by themselves in the Venezuelan streets, even in the world. The truth triumphs, and the millions of people who love Venezuela triumph. And it is crystal clear in Maracaibo, in Marina, in Amazonas, in Valencia, in Tucupita, in Marquesimeto, in Mérida, in Cumaná, in Maturín, in Puerto La Cruz, in San Fernando, in Maracay, and the vast demonstration of love and joy, of popular strength, force, and it was a huge demonstration, a historical demonstration of a people who knows that it's defending its right to the future, its right to the homeland. And there we are watching some images. I think it was Cumaná, Valle de la Pascua. I think it was impressive. Guárico, as Armando said. The images speak by themselves. Who standed for more, the fascists or the Venezuelan people? There's the reality. Those who have eyes may open their eyes and see the truth. So on Sunday, they tried to, even some journalists who wrote for some pages, gauging forces in Venezuela. There are millions of people go against and in favor of Maduro. They wrote. An applause to Margarita. It was a tremendous demonstration. Proof. They know very well that they cannot even us. They cannot make us equal. And that the forces that the people demonstrated with their awareness, without social media, is the truth. It's the truth of millions of people who are in love of freedom and real freedom and democracy. That's the truth. The truth. And then on Sunday they deleted images, they disappear images. They don't talk about that. They spoke about something else now because they are aware of what happened. Those far-right sectors know what's happening. They want to get blind and to be deaf, and it is their problem. But we are compelled to open our eyes to listen carefully and to act in the depths of our people. Just to not only Chavism was attacked, my compatriots, my partners, my brothers and sisters, Jorge Rodriguez. Not only Chavism was and the Bolivarian patriotic forces were attacked brutally and criminal. That's why I call it cyber-fascist criminal coup. They are trying to turn criminals confessed, convicted, that we captured, we arrested, armed, and they committed arson and murder, and they are political prisoners, and they can use they use again the oaths and the CDI and the declining CDA. Not any international organization handled by Washington can't do anything with Venezuela. Hate went beyond, violence went beyond, and they attacked innocent civilians, and they killed innocent civilians. There we have the evidence, the weapons. We have the weapons and those who commit those crimes. We've got the record of the murders, of those murders on July 29, 30, and 31st. But they went beyond. They attacked artists, sports athletes, influencers, municipality by municipality. Because in each municipality, in each state, there are influencers. People who earn their lives publishing stories, entertaining people. They had the list of all influencers in their municipalities, parishes, and they threatened everyone. They said, as Pablo Escobar, money or bullet. So or you go against Maduro, or we are coming after you. And so they attacked humble influencers, and they make them to say things. They attacked all artists abroad in Venezuela. So an artist can tell me that it isn't true if they weren't menaced to death if they didn't pronounce in favor of fascism and against the Bolivarian revolution. Did you know that? All famous important artists that from Venezuela, they have made their careers, all were threatened to death, all were attacked on their social media to make them, to compel them, and unfortunately some were compelled and were blackmailed by hate, and I call them to heal that hate, because Venezuela won't change. Venezuela is gonna be here. It's gonna be its audience, its people. Venezuela will continue at peace, and you decide if you want to continue making your careers with your families in Venezuela. It's my first reflection that I made to those artists, to those influencers, because they are being used by blackmail, by the bots campaign. They are being bribed, and then they led them by their own. When fascist billionaire Maria Corina Machado fled to Miami, they will forget about you. She will forget about you, and say they will do as they did in all coup d'etats. They use them and then they get rid of them, and their artistic careers will be destroyed in front of the eyes of the Venezuelan people. The Venezuelan people is the one who commands in Venezuela. They are influenced in the world. They have built that. Who manages YouTube? Who manages TikTok? The imperialism. Who manages Instagram? Does Instagram have its headquarters in Carabobos? Does Facebook have its headquarters in Caracas? All social media, including Spotify, which is the most famous distributor of artists and songs, all are part of the technological imperialist are part of the technological imperialist empire. They build. They are influencers on a televised way when the radio was dominating, but right now are the social media, which are led by the U.S. imperialism, and the hate was poisoned some, and others were afraid of, and others were frightened by this hate. They prefer not to lose their career, but losing their homeland. So one wonders if those people didn't take the office, didn't take power, and with the power they have on social media, and they committed all these crimes. So if these people would take office, what would they do? How many people would be killed? So today in the world they are understanding the claim that I did. If fascism take the office, Venezuela will have a bloodbath. So that's why our victory is the victory of peace, of harmony, of coexistence, of a society that wants to advance towards the future. And that's the truth. They were, hate was overflooded. The first thing I want to propose you in this first intervention is that take the system seriously. In first place, we have to build up a force system in 3 rings. Oh, you look good. You are always on fashion. Es a force system in 3 rings. Diosdado, Hector. Reyes. Partners of the Great Patriotic Pole. The first ring of forces, the PSUV and the Great Patriotic Pole in expansion within each street each community with a plan, without delays, without any delays, consolidating the first ring of forces of the peace of the country, of the Bolivarian revolution that is the guarantee of the existence of Venezuela. United as we are today. The United Socialist Party of Venezuela and all movements that have been born within revolution. And there are the electoral movement of the people who were born before, but Tupamaru, UPV, We Are Venezuela, Future, Fall in Love are the latest ones. The first ring of forces, as Commander Chavez explained to us, Diosdado. Did you remember his theory when he was in Yares? I understand that it was his theory for founding the revolutionary movement, and it was his theory when he went to the streets on March 23, and he explained to us the concentrated rings. I confess I didn't understand it by then. But then he named it a point circle, and it was a way of expanding. And we are now in an offensive phase and expanding, and we have to expand and to build for more. We have to heal those who need to be healed from hate, from distrust, from intolerance. And we have to add those people. We have to join those people. And the second ring of forces is to consolidate in the territories and social sectors and its organizational ways. It's what we call the popular movement, and the three concepts comprises the social, and they are comprehensive. They are connected to each other. Do you know it? You have the experience enough, as same as us. We are from the same decades. We are the founding generation. We have been talking about 5 generations. We have the precursor generation. So the second ring of forces is the social, expanding the social, which comprises the popular movement. All forces that made up the popular movement, the union movement, the movement of the working class, all forces of the staffs that exist in all states, that guarantee the peace in their territories, that have breathtaking experiences like those of Tupamaru. Tupamaru is an organization that combines forces of social movement and those of the stats. Is a transition between popular and collective movements. It is like that, the struggle of all the people. So, pay attention, the second ring of forces, the popular movement. I ask for help for those in charge of that, from the party, from the Great Patriotic Pole. I ask for ideological and political help. This has to be done within 24 hours. It's not for the day after tomorrow. the popular movement and the commune power. The commune power is the expression of democracy, of the people's empowerment, and the territorial socialism. Is the creation of Hugo Chavez. If you ask me, among the 100 elements, you that are good for these things, here, Eric, if you ask me, Diosdado, among 100 elements, think carefully, President, answer me, which is the biggest element, the biggest powerful element are the commune councils, the commune powers. That's the essence of building a democratic and justice state, a state of rights, a social state, which Aristobulo is the writer of social democracy, inspired Chavez, as I told you. This is the blue book. Who from you haven't read the blue book? Honestly, who read the blue book? So we are gonna have a test on page 72, the second paragraph. Hector Rodriguez. What says page 72? You look some familiar. You are like my grandsons. The blue book I published on my social networks. This is the genesis of our historical project that unites us, that awakes us, that boosts us. Did you know this project when, Reyes? I know it in 1992 because they sent it when I was in prison, and it was for me another world. Did you remember Peñatas? And I got photocopies because we don't have a printing capacity, and I read it over and over because we were identified with classic theories of socialist of those socialists of Europe, but this was our roots, our powerful roots. So the second ring of forces is the social, the popular movement, the popular power, the commune power, and look how they are expanding, they are broadening from the political democratic forces, because for us, political parties have to take the lead with their capacity of leadership. We have to improve the capacity of political leadership, of political management, but politics with capitalizing P regarding the homeland. The first ring is to expand the deepening society, to listen to the society for transforming it, The second ring is organizing the forces in society. Jorge, that you are a follower of Marx, civil society. Viñates, what did you say? What do you say about this, that you are an expert on this affair? Marx differentiated civic society from political society, and then they took there we have the there we are the civil society on the streets, the descent of Venezuela. Second ring is the social, is regard, and we have to have time for this. We have to dedicate time for the popular movement. We have to dedicate time for the popular power, for the commune power, for the construction of socialism within territories, and we have to include it in our agenda. The third ring of force is the broadening alliances, broadening cultural, economic alliances in the Venezuelan society, with a system of broadening alliances with all productive factors. Come productive factors. We will make a single force in the economic and cultural sector for ending blackmail, because for being an artist, so forget about Miami, forget about transnationals. For being an artist in Venezuela, they have to love Venezuela and for perform in the Monumental in Caracas. Let's break off the colonial dependence in a cultural and artistic nature. We are able to do it. A broadening cultural alliance with tolerance, learning to recognize our differences and respect them as we do. I have met, you don't imagine. Do I tell it, Celia? I have met with everyone, with everybody, not with Edmundo González. You don't imagine, or maybe you imagine. For instance, José Luis Rodríguez el Puma, I look up to him. He could say anything, but the affection that I have for him, I kept it. They are enemies of Venezuela, both of them. José Luis Rodríguez ordered to assassinate me once. Then he came to Venezuela and asked for a meeting in 23 grados. In the Viñeca, we met, and when he arrived, he hugged me. I hugged him. He cried. I didn't cry. He seated, and there Celia was, and we spoke for over an hour, and he wanted to apologize with me and asked me and justified a pardon petition, and I said, I don't have anything to pardon. There is God. And in front of him, I sang different songs. I sang Christ loved you, so search for him, and he laughed. It was cool. He sang in Venezuela. Many people said, how come this guy who ordered to kill the president, he's singing? But then he is able to sing, and he explained to me that the pressure on him was brutal, and I said, I don't need any explanation. And then he came out again, and he claimed, he pledged publicly that he wouldn't mess with politics. But why did he come out? For the political pressure, for the fascist pressure who menaced him and his family. But Jose Luis, for many hate you have, for many menaces, Nicolás Maduro Moros, will be president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. I am singing with your songs. You asked me for forgiveness, and I told you I don't have the powers to forgive you. But we have to make a cultural and identity alliance, a scholar alliance, religious alliance. We have to speak with every religious sector. I told the ambassador of Pope Francis, who delivered me the credentials. I have excellent relations with the evangelist church. I would like to have the same excellent relations with my Catholic church, because I was born as a Catholic boy. I did my first communion. I was baptized as a Catholic boy in San Pietro Church. But I am in a situation in which I learned to be Christian without mediators. Third ring, right? Third ring in expansion of alliance. There are 3 rings of forces to build. And from now, we have to reform the political manuals, the old theologies, and to begin transforming this revolution. We have to change ourselves for the better. It is a great decade of changes, a new decade, a new era of changes, of transformations, for building up the socialism of the 21st century. And the 21st century socialism has to be democratic, participative, free. We have to build a new cultural hegemony, and it is not fascism. Fascism is all the opposite of democracy and socialism. In that direction, we have several tasks. A concrete a task on August 25, a breathtaking task which has a tactical component, that is to strengthen peace and its strategic component is to build a new governmental system in which the budget gets to the people, which elects with their ballots the projects for their progress. The project, the national project of Simón Bolívar, it is one of the greatest transformations that marks the path from here to 2031. It is to change the government system. This is not overnight, but it is just able to do it by degrees, and the first transforming force in that direction has to be the first ring. The second transforming force is the second ring, and we have to unite we have to join political and social, and we have to join all the political forces with the social forces, and it will come the day in which our country permanently everything will be decided by consultation, and we have to guarantee that the mayor offices will be attached to those priorities of the commune circuits, and the political system of Venezuela is going to have a great change, going to have a great transformation of our model, which is an alternative to the savage fascism and imperialism. And what Bolívar said, and Chavez always said, advance on the path of revolution. There is no other way, and we are not going to reverse our process. We are not going to reverse our power, but our process, but we are going to advance in the just causes, democratic causes. We have everything to achieve it. And so I have been boosting those processes, and let's focus on those tasks. I already gave you a task, Venezuelan youth. I want to see you on the neighborhoods, walking house by house, listening to the people, learning from the people, and guiding the people, neighborhood by neighborhood, commune by commune. It is very beautiful that our brilliant youth, our brilliant and stunning youth go to within all neighbors to learn from the great master of history, from the people on the streets, who have been resilient of every riots, every battle. We have a second task that it has a strategic and tactical character, and in the 1976, when the foundation of Matanceros, it was in the 1983, that foundation, or at the end of the 1970s. We have to come back to Isidore after I just promised to come back there after my triumph. And from here I greet all working classes who have been mastering all these decades of struggles. I almost making the script of the first program. Half could be made by Jorge and half by Delcy. Well, I cannot say that. I summoned on Saturday, the day in which the fascism were defeated 3 times. We defeated the influencers from Miami, and we defeated the fugitive coward Edmundo González Urrutia, and we defeated violent fascist Maria Corina Machado. And we had a great victory of peace and tranquility, of self-confidence. How do you call it when you trust yourself? Collective self-esteem, our moral, the collective self-esteem and moral of the people that knows it has the power by their hands, that when we go to the streets it's guaranteed peace, tranquility, welfare, and work. And when we are the majority on the streets, there are no fascists that can go out. So it is something we want to take responsibility. We have a lot of work to do, and it is not by a single person, but it is by all of us. Chavez said it. This project doesn't depend on a man. It must never depend on a single man. It is a collective project of joint forces with roots, experiences, and with forces that make us new every time. And Chavez said it, and 11 years after we saw that project, here it is, your project, your successful project advancing towards the future. And we are seeing the future because we have managed to build forces. We have managed to resist the hurdles and pass all tests. On the name of God, we carry the strength of David against Goliath against Elon Musk and the imperialism and his allies, the influencers, Goliath and the influencers. If there were some artists, they would create a good story of comics about this. And the fascist behind, full of demonizing colors with a knife on her hand. So I launched a viral task. We have 8 weeks, Diosdado, Jorge, Delcy, partners. I have summoned to a great national congress of the whole Venezuela, an inclusive Congress with technical and scientific capacity to receive the plan of actions within the 7 transformations that we have presented in Venezuela ahead of the 2031. And this has to come out from a dialogue of the 3 rings of forces, a dialogue that allow us to make the first steps for transforming the Venezuela that needs those transformations, that dreams of those transformations, to consolidate the economic revolution, to strengthen the political revolution, to strengthen the cultural revolution, to strengthen the spiritual and moral revolution, to strengthen the military revolution, the police revolution, the concept and doctrine of defense of the homeland, to consolidate among all the society in a comprehensive process, in a perfect within the three rings of forces that I am calling to build up in a we have to recognize that Venezuela is very different. The 21st century has built societies very different. Even the technological empire studies societies and splits societies. And if the Venezuelan society is split, in how many segments could be divided, they built up psychological and communicational answers in function of the political and political hegemony and in function of their interests. We have to make a process like that, but within our reality, on our streets, with a human sense, that all with direct contact, and just to defeat those social medias. We are more powerful by knocking the doors of every person. We are more powerful than thousands of social networks full of lies and manipulation. It will come the day when the truth be revealed on social media. There will be surprises in this world, and that hegemony that they have today, they will lose it. We will build alternatives. Now I am summoning for September, for October 18, 19, and 20 to setting debates and resolutions of the Great National Congress to make the plan of actions of the 2031. So I ask concrete proposals for that agenda. We have experience, knowledge, we have proposals. So let's make the big effort of thinking collectively as we are to practice the best for our country. I summoned the great politics. I don't leave the politics for a single person who believes supernatural and makes deals with the devil, as it is the violent Maria Corina Machado. This is not dependent on a single person or influencers that want to rule Venezuela from Miami. Venezuela depends on the collective effort of those who want to work, of those who love Venezuela. I summon you all to dialogue and resolution, to a common agenda. Delcy Rodriguez, a common agenda, a beautiful agenda, and that will make available that we change many things, and that will allow to change many things. Are you willing to change many things to continue transforming this country for the better? This country cannot depend on a single person. it has to depend on the collective effort of a democracy. Therefore, I summon strongly, and I hope the first document be delivered. Delcy, Diosdado, and company, you will summon the best minds for us to disseminate documents, proposals that we will send them to consultation, and I ask for those experts to begin on this task. And likewise, we have a big task, that are the laws of the National Assembly. Jorge Rodríguez render accounts on shared a briefing to the people, and the people wants that we advance in the anti-fascist laws, and there are very important laws regarding the non-governmental organizations, and it's been already approved, a bill. So the law on the control of the non-governmental organizations has been already approved unanimously, and even opposition sectors shared all these opposition sectors expressed their will of approving this law, because these opposition sectors has been far away from fascism, and the big campaign that of those fascism came from the non-governmental organizations. The law against neo-fascism is in public consultation, and we have already had a first day of consultation, and we received the support and the proposals of greater sectors of Venezuela, and then we asserted there the need to go forward in the consultation, because we have enriching the proposal, but there it enters the cyber fascism, the digital fascism that wasn't stipulated there, and it is important to include it here to denounce those people who use technologies for hegemony, of hate, of persecutions, of murders, because they have ordered to murder lots of people through social media with the objective of frightening them, and maybe they can achieve it, but the people rejected those threats, and it feels empowered to move forward. And from that consultation, well, it was very well. It has been the consultation was made within the 23 states, and 25 people were present, and 890 sites were connected across the nation, and we are receiving proposals of every sector according to what is in the Constitution and in our reality. That law will be rejected by fascists. That law will be rejected by neo-fascists. That hate will be rejected by haters, but will be approved by Venezuelans who are willing to continue on the peace track on a lasting past on the lasting peace, and it will be punished any sign of fascism or any expression of hate. This cannot occur in the Venezuelan population, and it cannot happen in the political activity of Venezuela. Those fascist and terrorist sectors who are looking to summon the people for generating violence, and behind that violence to pursue what they weren't able to achieve by votes and on the streets, that is for them to get rid of the Bolivarian Revolution. The Bolivarian Revolution is getting stronger, stable, more lasting, and with concrete plans to continue moving forward. That's the advance, and so we have to proceed to sign and polish for enacting this law. The LC coordinates everything to do it immediately, and we are also working on a law against fascism, against neo-fascism, and alike expressions. It is a progressive law that takes the best from the European laws regarding Nazism and fascism, and it is adjusted to the Venezuela reality. And it is a law that is being studied and admired by the world, because the world is reacting against fascism. 100 years later, there is an upsurge of neo-Nazism, of fascism in Europe, in Latin America. Partner Jorge Rodriguez, legislator. Thank you, President. These laws and some others that we have been working on the Permanent Commission about internal policy and culture, it is part of the package of laws to provide tools for the population and the Venezuelan people for the cracking down and for fighting for the sovereignty and peace and independence of Venezuela. This law has to be very good, as a character as Brian Nichols has spent its valuable time at the Department of State, at the U.S. Department of State, and he criticized the law of NGOs, because these NGOs are depending on the CIA and on the U.S. Department of State, as they financed all destabilizing actions and violent actions against the Venezuelan people. These commanditos of violence, of far right, that were activated to destroy, kill, and burn, they were sponsored by the facade of alleged NGOs, as they were financed by doubtful organizations or U.S. organizations. Almost 100% of sponsorships were coming from an illegal, and so there are laws that rule political parties, entrepreneur companies, rules that and there weren't any rules that regulate and establish the parameters for the non-NGOs. There are NGOs that are happy with the enactment of this law, the Red Cross of Venezuela, or sports organizations that will be benefiting from this whole process. But who protested? Brian Nichols and the representatives of violence, because they know they won't be able to finance the commanditos of violence and the violent groups and drug addicts. They couldn't able to finance with facades of NGOs. And as you were saying about the anti-fascist laws, and that you added novelty elements about cyber fascism, and you mentioned in the meeting of the Council of State a week ago something that is very unprecedented, that is that Venezuela has been the epicenter and an experiment for the imposition of these actions by product of violence and hate from a omnipresent, omniscient element on the social media of this cyber fascism. I imagine that 4 fat in Spain with a computer, and those 4 fat people controlled 300,000 TikTok accounts or Instagram accounts, and they are sowing hate in their cyber fascism. And in the coup d'etat on 2002, it was through a media campaign, and this was led by the hate on social media. And in this weekend in Miami, they presented some children, 12 years, calling for Venezuela, calling to invade Venezuela. And adults were laughing when these children summoned people to violence. That a 12-year-old, who is very easy, asked for invading Venezuela. What is gonna be the future of those children if their parents are telling them that it is good to kill, that it's good to insult, to humiliate a country? And of course their future will be of mental disorders, as we have to be vaccinated against hate, against far right, against extremism. And in these forms of sowing hate and fascism, that wouldn't be so simple to inoculate the population with viruses much dangerous than the COVID-19 pandemic, than the coronavirus. And our youth, our children, which are easy prey of this kind of speech, because the youth, something that characterizes the youth is the fear of being rejected socially, and so they are trying to group them as from a speech of hate. And I was overwhelmed at seeing that at high school the task for an essay is to how to assassinate President Nicolás Maduro, and so the society itself will pay for it. So let's go to consultation. That's the way. Every person must study, must take measures, must create new things in parishes, in municipalities, in communes, on social media, on the streets. We have to disseminate, and we have to build our communicational force that is able to defeat coup d'etats like this. We are able to mobilize millions with a single call. I wish they would never understand. So another big line of the National Assembly, of the National a sovereign assembly, advancing these necessary measures to overthrow the cyber coup d'etat, criminal coup d'etat.
Del golpe de Estado y del relato que ellos quisieron imponer está constitucionalmente canalizado.
The conflict of the coup d'etat is completely channeled, and the Supreme Court of Justice has informed about all their processes. The Constitution of Venezuela stipulates that any contentious appeal, any conflict of electoral character, be from a trade union, a mayor office, a governorate, or presidential elections, any conflict whatsoever in that matter, any contentious appeal, be solved by our institutionality, by our constitution, in a sovereign way. Venezuela is not a meddling country. We don't have guardians in the world. We don't meddling in any internal affairs of any country. We don't accept any guardianship, any intervention in Venezuela. We are abide by constitution, institutionality. They intend to make a narrative of a coup d'etat of violence, but peace and institutionality has been imposed. So I said fascism here. Don't go to the wrong path. Don't mess up with justice and law, because in Venezuela it will prevail truth through justice, and in Venezuela it will have constitution, peace and institutionality. Are a good listener, good wise words, and in front of the coup d'etat, in front of the fascist fascist coup d'etat, more democracy, more popular power, more expanding forces, more streets, more leadership. Let's rebuild everything that we need to rebuild. They tore down statues of the big chief Cormoto, and we will be soon in Guanares with 100,000 people rebuilding that piece of art, paying homage to our great chief Cormoto. They tried to tear down the statue of Jose Gregorio Hernandez, the physician of the people. They tried to throw off a statue of the great liberator Bolivar. They tore down statues of love of our great commander Chavez. Never the people with their love who placed them on the squares to pass by with children, to say to children that in that statue was Chavez. And Chavez, as Tania said, with a group of partners there at the hill, Chavez is not a statue. Chavez is a monument of love of homeland. Chavez is the greatest monument in the hearts of the people. We will go town by town in which they tore down the statues. We will go and rebuild those statues. And besides, building a statue is to raise their thinking, their leadership. The project that Chavez wrote, that is nowadays living, searching for paths Chavez is with us right now, searching for new paths, pointing at horizons, and providing us his blessings as a good father who's accompanying his sons and daughters. Someone proposed me, this girl proposed me a great idea, which is very good. And I reviewed here lots of messages I received, and there is a proposal in that direction. But I want to set a date. The team with international experience, Diosdado, Delcy, Lagas. Now for general elections on Sunday. There's elections on Sunday. They are general and commune elections. They want democracy. Here you are, democracy. They want participation. Here you can see participation, real participation. There's coming a group of international observers. I said Ariasa to make a bigger effort to make that more international observers come here, and they see, international observers see the beauty of a people that owns its sovereignty, its popular sovereignty and freedom. And so they are proposing me, I would place it before the National Congress in October, earlier, to conduct partners, to carry out a global congress against fascism with guests from all continents. Let's invite thinkers, intellectuals, artists, social leaders, political leaders from Africa, Asia, Europe, the United States, Latin America, the Caribbean, etc. So let's do here in Venezuela, epicenter, world epicenter of the fight against fascism, the Great Congress against fascism and expressions alike, to nurture ourselves from proposals worldwide. And Venezuela is defending its right to live, to peace, and the right of its right for the future. Partners of the Great Patriotic Pole and all of you, the bell rings and there is a new era launching, and it is a greater era coming. Long live the unity of the great Venezuelan people. Long live the Socialist Party of Venezuela. Long live peace, homeland, and long live politics. Everyone to victory. Thank you very much.
De esta manera ha culminado el encuentro con la Dirección Nacional del Partido Socialista Unido de Venezuela y el Gran Polo Patriótico Simón Bolívar, donde el presidente de la República Bolivariana de Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, ha dado unas líneas específicas en destacar lo que fue la puesta en marcha de 3 anillos de fuerza.
We were listening to the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro, who was just leading a meeting with leadership of the PSUV and also of the Great Patriotic Pole, highlighting the importance of the victory obtained in the face of We were listening to the words of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, also of other leaders in a gathering that brought together the leadership of the PSUV and also of the Great Patriotic Pole. And some of the most important topics had to do with the victory obtained in the face of fascism and neo-Fascism, and also the steps ahead in what is coming ahead. We will have more news on this in upcoming news briefs. Stay with us in teleSUR English.